Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Prophetic News Update segment brought to you by the Shofar Ministries. In this segment, we're covering world news that are connected to Bible prophecy. In our headlines today, we'll be looking at the 7.5 and 7.8 magnitude earthquake that has affected both Turkey and Syria. And we'll also look at the possible climate change lockdowns that are on the horizon. And we'll cover also the crisis in Nigeria after the introduction of the digital naira or the digital currency in Nigeria, as Nigeria is trying to phase out cash and introduce a digital currency. More than 21,000 people have been confirmed dead after the devastating earthquake that has affected Turkey and Syria. Just take a listen to what BBC News had to say about the issue.
The number of people now known to have been killed in Monday's earthquakes in Turkey and Syria has now passed 21,000. Rescue teams are still trying to find survivors more than 90 hours after the quakes. The UN says more help is on its way and has urged governments not to hinder aid supplies.
Now, both the Bible and spiritual prophecy did warn us about the last day events or last day disasters. If you look at the book of Matthew 24, verse 7, Christ said, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." All these things that are written in verse 7 of Matthew 24 are the events that we are witnessing today. Nation rising against nation, and the original says ethnos against ethnos, race against race. So racism, as we are seeing racism all over the world today, Christ said we will see racism in the world before his second coming. And also we've seen pestilences, we've seen COVID-19, we've seen famines, and we are still being warned of possible famines coming in 2023 or 2024, and we're seeing earthquakes. So all these things are a sign that the second coming of Christ is very near. Ellen White also highlights the same events in the book, The Great Controversy, page 589, when she says, talking about Satan, she says, "While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster until popular cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place and in 1,000 forms. Satan is exercising his power." So this is what Ellen White says Satan will do in the last days. He will bring earthquakes. He will bring all these calamities that she is mentioning in this chapter. These disasters are telling us as Christians that we should start doing things differently. We should start getting serious about character building. We need to pray. We need to fast. We need to ask God to be part of our Christian walk, because soon things are going to get even worse than what they are currently. Because listen to what Ellen White says when she continues on the same chapter, The Great Controversy, page 589. The next paragraph, she says, "These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast." So these disasters are not going to get better. They are not going to subside, but we're going to see them more frequently, and they are going to be more disastrous as time continues. So if Jesus talks about the last day events as the labor pains of a woman that is expecting a child, the labor pains don't get better as the child birth gets closer and closer, but they intensify. So even the last day disasters or the events, they're going to intensify, they're going to be more frequent and disastrous, as Ellen White says in the book, The Great Controversy, page 589. Now that COVID-19 lockdowns seem to be the thing of the past in most countries, but there seems to be lockdowns that are in the pipeline. But this time around, it won't be COVID or lockdowns that are aimed at capping the spread of the virus. But this time around, it will be climate lockdowns in order to reduce carbon emissions. Now let's see how these lockdowns are being planned in some of the countries, especially in the UK.
So let me tell you the plan. The plan is in Oxford, and this has just been passed by the council, to divide the city here into, a bit of a squiggly city, into 6 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you will only have the freedom to operate in the part that you live. So if this is you, the idea is that everybody will live within 15 minutes of the things they need. 15 minutes of a school, 15 minutes of a doctor's, 15 minutes of a supermarket. And if you want to travel to the other zones in your city, or maybe soon your town, you will have to go out an approved route. You will have to journey around the outside of the city in order to re-enter another section of the city. This plan is supposed to be saving the planet. And the idea is that you won't simply be able to cross over into other sections of your city anymore. So if your mother, for example, lived over here, you wouldn't be able to just go across and see her. This would all be done via e-gates, electronic gates, and number plate recognition. You in your area will only be allowed within that 15-minute zone that you've been allocated. The number plate recognition will know if you leave your zone, and you can apply for permission, a permit to leave your zone and travel to another zone, but you'll only be allowed to do this about 100 times a year. This is real. I just have to stop and say that. This is actually being passed by Oxford Council. This is happening in the next 2 years, 2024 it begins. And if you use up all your 100 passes that someone designates whether you're allowed to have to go into the different zones, you'll be fined. Your number plate will be recognised. It will observe that you've gone somewhere you're not allowed in your own city.
The concept of the 15-minute cities is from the World Economic Forum. And this idea or this concept is aimed at restricting the movement of people so that you are only allowed to access facilities that are within a 15-minute walk from your residence, meaning that you will only be allowed to go to a hospital, a school, a shop that is within a 15-minute walk from your residence. So why are we including this in our prophetic news? It's because climate change and Sunday law are the twins. Very soon, the lockdowns will be on Sunday. You won't be allowed to move on Sundays. And they will tell you it's because of climate change. And if you read the encyclical letter of Pope Francis Laudato Si, he says that the earth needs the Sabbath. In order to save planet Earth, the earth needs the Sabbath. And his Sabbath, as written in his encyclical letter, is Sunday. It makes a lot of sense now why God says we must leave the cities and live in the country. Because in the cities, it's going to be very difficult to be an Adventist or to be a Christian waiting for the second coming of Christ in the cities. It's going to be very difficult. So Christ says we must move to the country so that we can raise our own provisions and not be dependent on the systems of this world. So it's high time that we lift up our heads because our salvation draws nigh. In the Bible, the book of Revelation chapter 13 talks about a system or a beast that will control buying and selling. And for such a system to thrive, you need a digital money. You need to get rid of cash. So what we see now across the globe is the phasing out of cash and the introduction of a digital currency. Because with digital currency, you can control what a person buys. You can control what I don't have to buy. because digital currency is programmable. So if there is such a system in place, buying and selling can be easily controlled. Just take a look at what is happening in Nigeria as they are trying to introduce digital money and get rid of cash.
Drivers losing their cool on Lagos's main commercial road. Petrol shortages, chaos at banks, in addition to insecurity and the chronic lack of water and electricity, have added to the plight of many in Nigeria. Less than a month before general elections, that's the last straw for Vanessa Ifejita.
This is what we see every day, and I have to bring my children to school here every day, and this is what happens. And it's always the military people that just block the way. I don't know what is happening in Nigeria. I'm just a little bit fed up of going through this everyday distress. It's just terrible.
In Nigeria nowadays, we queue for everything. You queue for PVC, you queue for fuel, you queue for new Naira note. So the traffic again, coupled with the traffic in the island and the mainland. So it's terrible. It's terrible. We are going through hell.
Nigeria's push to replace its paper money with newly designed currency notes has created a shortage of cash, leaving many unable to buy what they need. New Naira notes being hard to get, the central bank had to extend the deadline to turn in old ones.
The queue here is very much. Why? Because other banks, the ATMs are not working. Even when you walk into the bank, they will tell you they are not giving that money, that they don't have the cash. I mean the new notes. So it seems as if this is the only bank that is dispensing money. For me, I don't know about other persons. So I live in this area, and this is the only bank has been, the ATM has been dispensing the new notes. Other banks, it is either the old note or you don't see any money at all in the bank.
Frustration is mounting across the country, with some planning not to cast a vote on February 25. The Independent National Electoral Commission has once again extended the deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards.
Slowly but surely we're moving towards a cashless society. If you notice, in most banks, if you go to the bank looking for cash, they discourage cash. They discourage that you carry cash, but they encourage that you do everything online. They tell you about the app, they tell you about online banking, transfer money. So they're trying to digitalize everything. So very soon, cash is going to be a thing of the past. And the elite or the Satan is going to be able to control people 100%, because once you digitalize money, then you're taking power of money from the hands of the people into the hands of the elite. So the beast system is active, and we are living in the final hours of Earth's history. That is why we need to be awake. That is why we need to preach the three angels' messages. That is why we need to move out of the cities. That is why we need to start raising our own provisions, because God told us a long time ago that the beast system is not going to be friendly to a Christian, but it's going to be coercive. And that's the nature of Satan. He's very coercive. He's controlling. He's bringing back the system of the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, the feudal system or the fascist system, where there were only two classes, the rich and the poor. And if you notice what the Bible says in Revelation, it talks about the young and the old, the rich and the poor. It talks about two types of people, great and small. It doesn't talk about 3 classes, 4 classes, 2 classes. This means then that before the second coming of Christ, there's only going to be 2 classes, the rich and the poor, because the middle class is currently being destroyed. Maybe in our next or in our future episodes, we'll talk about the future of work, because many jobs that we currently have are going to be destroyed. And that is why they're introducing the universal basic income. And in South Africa, it's being tested using the 350s that are given to the unemployed. So it's a test because in future, many jobs are going to be destroyed and people are going to be jobless. So we're going to remain with two classes, the rich and the poor. So what is happening in Nigeria is that they are testing digital money. Nigeria has got a population of more than 200 million people. So if you test such a system in a country like Nigeria and then you implement it in other countries in Africa and also abroad, then it's going to be very easy. So what they're currently doing is that they are testing, as they are testing a lot of things also in South Africa. In South Africa, they tested load shedding, and then it is now being rolled out in other countries across the world. So what is happening in Nigeria, it's coming in South Africa, it's coming in Zimbabwe, it's coming in Malawi, it's coming in Uganda. All African countries are going to implement digital money because that is the agenda. That is what needs to happen because Satan wants it to be so.